Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, and each week I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I'm thrilled for this week's guest, my friend Jane Brewer. Jane, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody who you are.
Well, I used to be your math interventionist, and then I retired in May of 2019, right before the teaching year of the pandemic.
Uh
Some people have timing.
huh.
And currently, I do a lot of things. I have a private tutoring student that I work with. I tutor at Blinn College online, and I am also a costume character at Santa's Wonderland, which is a local seasonal theme park.
So I've got so much I want to ask you today with such limited time. So first thing I always ask any of my guests though is, when we're and we go start at the beginning, is
Right.
that's when we were kids dreaming of what we wanted to be when we grow up. Does anything what you're doing now align at all with what you dreamed of as a kid?
Absolutely. I've been thinking about this a lot. When you were at Webb, your message was, you are enough.
Mhm.
And that is a valuable message, and the world needs to hear it. But I think my message to the world would be, you are not too much.
Mm,
You are not too old. You are not too fat. You are not too poor, too white, too ethnic, too anything
right.
to not do some version of what you've always dreamed of doing. When I was 7 years old and started out in church choir, I knew then that I wanted to be a professional singer. Well, that didn't happen until last year when I became Carol Christmas and I lead the sing along at Santa Station. And this afternoon, I'm going to go replace Doc TikTok so that he can have a day off. And I will be master of ceremonies and open the park and introduce the band. And I am doing what I always dreamed of doing, and I started doing it at 55.
Well, what I've always loved about you, Jane, is you were a fantastic teacher, and you thought outside the box, and you got to be you, but at the same time, like you just mentioned, you have this love for theater, you've got this
Yeah.
love for music. So,
Mhm.
and you did local theater all along the side, even while you were teaching full time, you were doing
Yep.
the theater. Even now, being retired from teaching, like you said, you're working with a local holiday park to kind of be some of their entertainment. How did you kind of balance the two where you didn't feel like I've got nothing left to give to this other joy that I have?
Oh, I didn't always. That no, there are some days when you just are going that I can't do this. I'm
Hmm.
going crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but those times end. And what you do is you start relying on the people around you, and you reach out to them and you say, "Hey, I need this.
Hmm.
I'm struggling, and while my life is this crazy, I need this." Or you cut something out
Right.
and you say, life is crazy. I'm not going to do this right now. And then you sort of say, you know what? Okay, I just finished doing a show. I'm not going to audition for the next one. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to
Yeah.
take a step back. So, yeah, balance. I mean, think about a scale that balances. It does this for a while before it evens out.
Hmm.
And so that's what you just have to get through the swing period.
I like that. I've never thought about that before, but that makes perfect sense. Well, Jane, on top of these other things that you do, one thing that you've got to experience in your life that I have just been so intrigued by is you went on this wild backpacking trip overseas. So tell me a little bit about how that came to be, why you did it, and what you learned through the experience.
I didn't know that the Camino Santiago de Compostela even existed.
Hmm.
And then I was dating a guy whose parents walked it. And then they sent him to walk it. And it just sounded so cool. It sounded like an immersive experience into another culture, which is
Yeah.
something I've always wanted. It was the reason why I moved to the Middle East for 2 years. And so I worked very, very hard. In fact, that trip is how I came to be at Santa's Wonderland, because I needed $5,000 for the equipment and the airfare, so I started working at Santa's Wonderland, and there was a 2-week period of time where I had 4 jobs going on. um, and then I started the walk, and it sounds braver than it is because that walk is so supported. It is a major part of the economy of Spain.
So if people are listening and they don't know what the walk is, what is it?
Okay. It is a Catholic pilgrimage that has existed for over 1,000 years. And there are multiple caminos.
Uh-huh.
There's the Camino del Norte, the Camino Francais, the Camino Portugal. I did the Camino Francais, which is what 80% of the people that do the Camino do.
Right.
And so I started out in a little town called Saint Jean Pied de Port, and then I walked to Santiago de Compostela, where the bones of the Apostle James are supposedly buried.
Ah,
And different people do the walk for different reasons. For some, it is a religious experience.
right.
And one of the greatest experiences I had was when I went to I was staying at a monastery with the Marist fathers, and they had a ceremony where they would come, they would put their hands on your head, and they would bless each of the pilgrims. And before the ceremony, what you did is you pulled out a little piece of paper that had the pilgrim's prayer and the Lord's Prayer and things on, and they were color coded. And so the fathers knew all the prayers in the language that corresponded to your color.
Right.
So when they got to you, they prayed for you in a language that you understood.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was so powerful and so meaningful and yet so simple.
Yeah.
It was a colored sheet of paper. And so some people do it for the religious experience. For some people, it's a hiking trip with a
Mhm.
certificate of achievement on the end at the end. Because if you complete the journey, if you do 100 kilometers by foot or 200 kilometers by horseback or bicycle, you get a Compostela, which says you've done the pilgrimage. But for most people, it's what's next. And life on the Camino becomes extremely simple. You walk, you eat, you sleep, you do it again. But you also have a lot of time to think about what is important to you. And life becomes so pared down. The only things you have are what you can carry on your back. So you don't have a lot of clothes. You don't take
Right.
a hair dryer. You don't take your makeup. Nobody cares what you look, and everything just gets boiled down to its essence. And at the same time, you are with people from all over the world:
Right.
Italians, Germans, Koreans, Japanese, and they all have a common goal and a common purpose. And politics don't matter, and
Mhm.
cultures don't matter. What matters is, are you someone to whom I can relate? Are you someone to whom I can support? And but even then, if you're not, okay, I just leave you and I go find someone that I can. It is truly for just a brief period of time. You become a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
And it is an amazing experience.
Well, you walked over 60 miles. I know you said 100 kilometers, so that's over 60 miles getting to do that. And so,
Oh, no. I started in St. John. I
ah,
walked 400 and I took some buses. I think my official count ended up 428 miles.
so how do you prep for that?
In Central Texas, you really can't. I mean, you the most important thing is that you break in your hiking boots. That's the most
Mhm.
important thing. Um, I don't know if you noticed or ever knew, but what I used to do when I was at Webb is, the Sonic is about 3/4 of a mile. On my half-hour lunch break, I would walk to Sonic, get a drink, walk back.
Ah,
And I would make it.
uh-huh.
Jeanette Enriquez can attest to that. I would make it.
Well, getting to do something like that, I love that you blogged the whole thing because some of us that were staying over here in America got to watch you do
Yeah.
that. But I think about the experience and all the different things you got to do and how they could each impact you. But when you reflect on it now, being a little time removed from doing it, what do
Mhm.
you feel like was your biggest thing that you gained from that experience?
I I don't the biggest thing that I gained is that big things are little things put together.
Mhm.
I didn't. I mean, I walked to Santiago, but when I walked to Santiago, I wasn't walking there. I was walking to the next town.
Got it.
Sometimes I was walking to the next hills. Occasionally, I was walking to the next tree. The reason why a Central Texan cannot train for to the Camino, at least the Camino Francais, is most of it is through mountains, and the altitude kicks your butt.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't care what. So the first day, I had to walk 16 miles up and over a 4,200-foot mountain,
Mhm.
and Navasota is not even 400 sea level.
Right.
So I would walk and I was having to stop and gasp for air. So I'm like, okay, I am going to walk 10 steps and then I'll stop. And then so I did that. Okay, next time I'm going to walk 12 steps. And I just increased it by 2 until I got to 40. And I'm like, you know what? That's it. That's all I can do.
Mhm.
So I climbed 16 miles, 4,200 feet in sets of 40 steps each.
Right.
And every morning, I got up and I did it again. And after 37 days of doing little things, I had done a big thing.
Well, I love that perspective because I think that's so important for so many of us, even not even talking about this trip, but thinking about that just in life, about,
Mhm,
thinking about all these little things that make these big either successes or trials or anything like that. So I
mhm.
love that perspective so much. But switching gears just a little bit with the limited time that we have, I'd love to get your opinion too. I'm sure there are people who are listening to this today
Mhm.
and they may be listening and feeling like they are a lone wolf on their campus or like they stick out because of their ideas or because of what they bring to the team. And what I've always valued about you is you are such an out of the box thinker, and you own it. And you don't shy away from it. And no matter what other looks you may be getting, you've grown into who you are. And so
Mhm.
my question would be, how do you be you without the concerns of what others around you may feel? And how do you do it where you still find connection?
Everyone wants to be valued. And one of the things that I do at the park is I let people know, children, when I'm performing, I connect with a kid. People want to be seen, they want to be heard. They also want to be understood, but you can't understand everyone, but
Right.
you can communicate. I see you, I hear you. And simply that acknowledgement can tell people that they matter. And once people believe they matter, they connect. Oh, I started out as a music teacher. When you're a music teacher, there's no one on campus that does what you do.
Right.
And not a lot of people understand. So you're kind of forced to do you.
Uh-huh.
Never, what I've learned, and it took me a long, long time to learn this. Your value, in fact, I said something like this to a friend on Facebook today because she said, I'm just so tired of disappointing everyone.
Right.
And I said, whether an action is right or wrong depends on the context. But your value as a person does not depend on the context.
Right.
Your value as a person is fixed and immutable as gold is. And you are gold. Whether people recognize that you are gold or whether they think you are, I can't think of the fake equivalent of gold, so I'm going to switch to diamonds. Whether they recognize that you're a genuine diamond or whether they think your cubic zirconia is their problem, not
Right.
yours.
Right.
You're the diamond.
Well,
And so you just get a sense, you just have to say, I know what I am, and my value doesn't depend on what you think of me. And maybe you have to get to the gray hair stage before you know that. But the earlier you learn that one, the better.
and I think that what you just said there is the whole idea of I know who I am, and it doesn't matter if you don't see my greatness or my what I bring here. I know who I am and what I bring. And I think that is such a beautiful way to end this conversation. Well, Jane, I have been looking forward to chatting with you. There's so many cool things that you bring to the conversation anytime we get to talk. And I look forward to one day being able to share your book out with the world too. So thank you so much for coming on today and chatting with me, Jane.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Jane has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because every story